To discuss all of these developments in the Middle East, let's bring in Dr. Kanta Ahmed, Middle East analyst and a visiting fellow with the International Women's Forum. Dr. Kanta Ahmed, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Derek. Thank you so much.
Sure. So let's talk about the newly named leader of ISIS, a replacement for Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was cornered and killed. ISIS clearly not giving up here.
Well, they're fanatics, and they're not going to give up on their fictional dream of a rabidly violent caliphate. Choosing the name Qurayshi is ironic because while that was the tribe in the time of the Prophet, it was also the most virulently persecuting and hateful tribe to the Prophet himself. So they've lost no time in clarifying their character. But we know that even though the territorial space that the ISIS caliphate briefly occupied in Syria and Iraq has been dismantled, ISIS remnants are roaming the region. There's still areas where people are kidnapped by ISIS. There are more than 3,000 Yazidi women and girls still enslaved with ISIS now. And I think what's much more appalling and much more devastating is that there is no safe zone that we keep referring to in the media. Turkey's only goal entering northeast Syria is the expungement, the genocide of the Kurdish people.
Sure.
They have no intention of securing it. That's the real crisis that here in the United States, nobody is discussing.
And we'll get back to the Kurds in just a moment, though, but I want to finish on ISIS and that warning that they made for Americans, that Americans should not rejoice in al-Baghdadi's killing and that it'll just continue its mission across the world. You say ISIS still is very prolific in different pockets. It's an ominous warning, isn't it?
It is an ominous warning. And don't forget, while we have wonderful security here in New York City, we're very grateful to the NYPD and all of our authorities for that. We have many American interests in the region. You've just mentioned the American forces that are now back in Syria. There was no withdrawal, guarding the oil fields. We have a new American consulate under construction in Erbil. We have many Americans in Iraq and the local region. We have allies that you've mentioned already in Riyadh and elsewhere that can also be targeted. This is a group that is not going to go away, and they will be using their same tactics of insurgency and violent evolutionary jihadism.
And I know you mentioned the Kurds earlier, and, you know, the Kurds really feel that the U.S. has abandoned them and left them pretty vulnerable to Turkey coming in and their insurgents there. There is a ceasefire going on, but it appears it's not being honored.
So let me correct you. It is not a ceasefire. Individuals who are there now in the Rojava province that are contacting me are retrieving the remains of human beings subject to genocide, civilians that are targeted with drone strikes, homes that are being watched by Turkish-backed militia. As soon as they step out to try and get food or water, they are executed by sniper. I have a list right here in the green room of kill shots to civilians of all ages. There is a genocide unfurling now. Nobody is guaranteeing their security. And we certainly betrayed the Kurds after they've been so loyal in one of our most lethal battles with public enemy number one, with ISIS. So let's stop talking about a ceasefire and let's start putting the screws on NATO ally Turkey that uses violent militia for its own private military operations. What other NATO ally will use remnants of ISIS and other similar jihadists to do its dirty work? It's disgraceful.
Yeah. And then there's this fresh fighting going on between Turkey and Syria. Syria is trying to recruit Kurdish fighters to join them against Turkey. So you're right. I mean, that doesn't have any hallmarks of a ceasefire.
So that's something that I just learned today. And I think that the Kurds are in an impossible position. But they also know under Syria for decades, my entire lifetime, they have been without citizenship. They are without identity. And so are they going to face the might of a NATO ally, which is empowered with all kinds of armaments, or are they going to fall into rank with Syria that's at least defending a territory and presumably, let's hope, not going to do genocide on the Syrian Kurds right now?
Sure.
They have no future. And as Americans, we have abrogated all our international responsibility in a way that appalls me. Congress voted today to recognize the Armenian genocide while we are turning away from a Kurdish genocide happening now because of American action.
Do you think the Trump administration's to blame for at least opening the door for this fresh fighting that's going on in northern Syria?
Certainly, the president was not guided in the impact of removing a handful of American soldiers that were working their economy by force. That shows you the might of the American army can keep back, even in small numbers, atrocities. And also, let's understand the entire NATO community, not just the United States, understand the character of Erdogan. He's not a Democrat. He's an Islamist, genocidaire, and he needs to be made pariah. Even Putin has more morals than Erdogan at this stage.
Well, we'll have to leave it there for sure. Dr. Kanta Ahmed, I know you're following the situation closely. We're glad you spent some time with us here on Clear Cut.
And Derek, thanks for lending voice to the Kurdish people. More broadcasters should be doing what you're doing.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kanta.